and welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is Brewing with Underwhelming Commanders, episode 41. And the winner of the poll this time is going to be Maraxus of Keld. Certainly an underwhelming commander, originally from Weatherlight. I actually remember opening this card in a pack way back in the day, and I just thought the art was ridiculous. Super badass looking character here. This guy just looks like he could do some serious damage. Really one of the most badass arts we've ever seen on a card, in my opinion. But what does it do? 4 red human warrior. Maraxus of Keld's power and toughness are each equal to the number of untapped artifacts, creatures, and lands you control. Very interesting ability, and of course, your commander is essentially just a giant creature, right? So the more untapped artifacts, lands, and creatures you have in play, the bigger your commander is going to be. And the weird thing about this commander is that his power and toughness will be constantly fluctuating as the game goes, right? Your commander's in play and you tap down a few lands to cast something, your commander's going to shrink. On your untap, when everything untaps, is likely going to be when your commander is at its biggest. So this commander really is reliant on the way you play it. Of course, how you build your deck is going to be important, but you have to be very careful in the way you play this commander. One of the things that happens in the commander format, and doesn't really happen that much in other formats, is you cast your stuff on your first main phase, then you attack, and then you have your second main phase, whereas in other formats, players will typically attack first to see what their opponents are going to do and then cast on their second main phase. So in this deck, that's probably what we're going to want to do, right? You're not going to want to cast a bunch of stuff on your first main phase because then all your lands are going to be tapped, your mana rocks. That's artifacts and lands that we want to be untapped so that when we attack with our commander, it will be bigger, right? So the way you play this deck is going to be really, really important, not just how you're going to build it. But if we do it the right way, we can get a really, really huge commander here. And of course, probably the easiest way to do so is just by putting lots of stuff in play, because the more stuff we have in play, the bigger our commander is going to get. And the easiest way to do that is probably going to be with treasure tokens, right? So you got an Ancient Copper Dragon, for example, or Brass's Bounty. Both cards I have in the deck are going to be cards that are going to put a whole bunch of treasure tokens into play. And as soon as we do so, it's going to make our commander a lot bigger. They're going to be untapped artifacts that are just sitting there. We're not going to use them right away, obviously. We're going to make sure we attack first before we use any of those treasure tokens. I went with a really heavy treasure token theme, of course, because in mono red, there's lots of options there. And it was the easiest way to make sure we have lots of stuff in play that's going to make our commander bigger. I got Goldspan Dragon here as well, Descent into Avernus. Both of these cards are going to be great. Goldspan Dragon is going to be making us treasure tokens, but it also allows us to tap our treasure tokens to add 2 mana instead of just 1. So of course, that's going to be a bonus in any deck where you're making treasure tokens, but it's also a bonus here because we can use less of our treasure tokens to do stuff because we don't want to be using them up all the time. We want them sitting around. Descent into Avernus is a really interesting card. 2 and a red enchantment at the beginning of your upkeep. Put 2 descent counters on Descent into Avernus. Then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent into Avernus deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of descent counters on it. So this is going to be speeding up the game for sure. It's going to be dealing damage to a lot of our opponents as well as us, but I think we're okay with that. Usually in a red deck, you're very aggressive, so you're okay with your opponents taking extra damage. It's going to be giving our opponents treasure tokens, which isn't great, but it's going to be spitting out a bunch for us as well. And again, we're in that theme, so we're going to be taking more advantage of it. Also, because we are in that treasure token theme pretty heavily, I put Darksteel Juggernaut and Academy Manufactor in here as well, because they are also going to be taking advantage of all the treasure tokens we are making. Darksteel Juggernaut is sort of similar to our commander in a way. 5 mana artifact creature Juggernaut has power and toughness equal to the number of artifacts we control, so it's not going to be as big as our commander, but it doesn't care about the untapped part. So however many treasure tokens, mana rocks, etc. we have into play, it's going to make it a big attacker that also is indestructible, right? So it's sort of a little bit of a backup for our commander. Academy Manufactor, every time we create those treasure tokens, we're getting a clue and a food as well. So I thought that was a pretty good fit, just added value to what we're already doing. Fathom Fleet Swordjack as well, I think was a great fit here. 3 and a red Orc Pirate 4/3. When it attacks, it deals damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking equal to the number of artifacts you control. So if we got a bunch of treasure tokens, tokens and whatnot lying around. Now we can smash our opponents for a bunch of damage. This is just a aggro, I'm attacking my opponent's sort of theme, so any damage we can be throwing at our opponents is going to be great. It also has Encore 5 and a red as well. Taking advantage of our commander's big power and toughness is going to be important, so Chandra's Ignition is probably going to be the best board wipe we can have here. It's going to deal damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. So this is for sure going to wipe out all the other creatures in play except for our commander, which is great, of course. But if we can get our commander really, really big, this doesn't count towards commander damage, but it is going to be very likely that we can turn our commander into a 40 power creature. So this is just going to end the game. It's going to kill all of our opponents. So we don't even care about the board wipe part here. We can just straight up win the game with this card. Burning, Anger, and Fling are also going to be great effects here. You know, other than just I attack with my great big vanilla creature, that isn't always the best route to go here. Maybe my opponents have a lot of blockers. A Fling effect, of course, means we have to sacrifice our commander, but we can one-shot one of our opponents very easily with it. Burning Anger is an interesting one. It's 4 and a red enchantment aura. We can put this on our commander, and then we can just tap our commander, and it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So again, we don't even have to attack here. We can leave our commander up as a blocker. If it's like a 40-40, now right before our turn, we can tap it down, shoot one of our opponents. They're dead. Move on to the next one, right? So effects like this, I think, are going to work really great here as well, other than just the I'm going to throw my giant creature at my opponents, which might not necessarily work all the time, right? Sure Strike Trident will also work this way. This one's an equipment. Equipped creature has first strike and tap. Unattached Sure Strike Trident, this creature deals damage equal to its power to target player. So we can just one-shot an opponent with this as well. I got Terror of the Peaks in here also. And this we can just wait until our commander has the potential to be really big, right? This is not a deck where I'm going to want to throw my commander out as quickly as I can. We're going to want to wait until it's worth it for us to do so. So of course, Terror of the Peak says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peak deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So again, if we have enough artifacts, creatures, and lands in play that are untapped, just casting our commander could be enough to knock out one of our opponents here. There will be a lot of one-shot type of effects in this deck where you are knocking off players one at a time. Of course, we will obviously be attacking with our commander as well. I got Power Matrix in here, Haunted Cloak. Giving your commander evasion is going to be the most important part here. Power Matrix is giving it flying and trample, so we're definitely going to be getting in for damage there, unless our opponent has a enormous flying creature that's even bigger than our commander, which I severely doubt. Haunted Cloak is a really underrated equipment in the format, I think. 3 mana equipment, has only equip 1, and equipped creature has Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. Those are a fantastic combination of abilities, I think, for a Voltron type of commander. The Trample, of course, is the big one that we want here, but the Haste also obviously allows us to attack right away, and the Vigilance allows us to leave our giant commander up as a great blocker as well. Let's not forget our commander is a warrior. We want to play into that a little bit, and Obsidian Battle Axe is going to be a great fit. Really almost an auto include if your commander is a warrior and you want to be attacking with it at all. It is a 3 mana tribal artifact, warrior equipment, has equip 3, but whenever a warrior enters the battlefield, you may attach Obsidian Battle Axe to it. So when our commander enters the battlefield, we can just easily slip this onto it. Don't have to worry about paying the 3 mana, and it gives our commander +2/+1 and haste, so we can immediately attack with it right away. Another interesting thing we can do here, a little bit of warrior tribal, is with Bold Weir Intimidator and Kargan Intimidator. Both are going to be great additions for our commander. Bold Weir Intimidator says cowards can't block warriors, and of course we don't want our commander, which is a warrior, to be blocked. That can get around the whole evasion thing, and for 1 red mana, target creature becomes a coward until end of turn. So if our opponent does have a big blocker, now we can just pay 1 red mana, turn it into a coward, and it cannot block our commander. Kargan Intimidator has some similar stuff here. Again, cowards can't block warriors. This guy's only 2 mana though, so it's going to be a lot easier to get him out. We can pay 1 and have Kargan Intimidator get +1/+1 till end of turn, or target creature becomes a coward until end of turn, which is probably the effect we're going to be using here, or target warrior gains trample into the turn. That one's also fantastic. fantastic. So a lot of great stuff going on this card that will work really nicely with our commander. I also threw Heiko Yamazaki, the general, in the deck. 3 in a red human warrior, 3/3 with trample. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, you may cast target artifact card from your graveyard this turn. So if we attack with our commander alone, of course it's a warrior, it will trigger this and we can get an artifact back out of our graveyard. And this is a very artifact heavy deck, so it is likely that we will have an artifact in our graveyard that we can then get back again. Some other interesting fits in the deck. I also have Togo Goblin Weaponsmith, which whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, we get to create a colorless equipment artifact token named Rock with equipped creature has pay 1 and tap, sacrifice Rock. This creature deals 2 damage to any target and equip 1. So that's a usable ability for sure. We can actually use those rocks, chuck them around, but more so, this is just another way for our commander to get bigger, because every time we play a land, we're going to get one of those rock tokens that are artifacts, and we're not going to be tapping them. We're going to leave them untapped so that it just makes our commander bigger. Fiend Lash, I thought also was a fantastic fit here. 1 on a red equipment, equipped creature gets +2 and has reach. So making our commander bigger, also going to make it so it can block flying creatures, which might be relevant. Also though, whenever equipped creature is dealt damage, it deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. So what this essentially does in the deck, I mean, again, you could leave it up as a blocker and no one's going to want to attack you, or you can attack with it, and if your opponents choose to block, of course, your commander's probably going to be taking damage and you're going to shoot them in the face with a bunch of damage anyway. So it really makes it so that there's no point for your opponents to be blocking your commander. Fantastic inclusion in the deck, I think. And I also threw Not of This World in this deck, another card that I have touted a few times on my channel before. 7 mana tribal instant Eldrazi. That's a lot. It's a colorless spell, so of course it can go in any deck. Counter target spell or ability that targets a permanent you control. That's pretty good, especially if you want to be protecting your commander. And as I just talked about in my video about things that you need in every commander deck, protecting your stuff is one of the things you need. And this is a great way to protect your commander if your commander has power 7 or greater in particular, because Not of This World costs 7 less to cast if it targets a spell or ability that targets a creature you control with power 7 or greater. So it's a free protection spell if it's targeting our commander, if our commander has power 7 or greater, which it almost assuredly will, right? It's going to be very likely that our commander's power is going to be 7 or greater. So this is just a free spell that we can cast, counter some removal spell that's trying to get our commander off the table. Fantastic inclusion in this deck, I think. Really interesting commander. Of course, it is underwhelming, no question about it. Again, the art is just out of this world. I really love the art there. This guy definitely doesn't miss his gym days. But again, though, you want to make sure you're playing the deck correctly as well, right? Your commander is looking for untapped artifacts, creatures, and lands you control. So it's not just about putting a bunch of stuff in play. It's about, I got to attack before I tap down a bunch of my stuff, like say my lands, for example, and then I will cast stuff on my second main phase after I've already attacked. And you really want to be careful here, right? There is a situation where you can just tap down all your stuff and your commander's power and toughness will be 0 and it'll die, right? So you have to be careful there as well. The constant fluctuating of your commander's power and toughness can make for a very interesting game. I playtested this deck myself. I believe I got Maraxus' power up to about a 64, and then just one-shotted my opponent with that Burning Anger. So it certainly is doable. It's a little bit of a slow burn deck. You're definitely not going to be wanting to get out of the gate really quickly. Getting your commander into play really fast doesn't seem like a great option here. Probably want to wait for the right moment to do that. If you are interested in this commander at all, I have the deck list in the description below. Feel free to check it out. And if you like the way I build decks, I do it on my Patreon all the time for my patrons. The link for that is in the description as well. Feel free to join up if you're interested in that. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.